Today's Being You is a reflection on the sixth principle, and it was written by Baer. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We gain a new understanding of the concepts of the sixth principle if we look through an ecocentric lens rather than an anthropocentric lens. These are the concepts of world community, peace, liberty, and justice for all. First, regarding world community, the anthropocentric viewpoint has been the foundational viewpoint of many Western religions and philosophies throughout the millennia. From this point of view, human beings are the most significant creatures in the world, separate from and superior to nature itself. Moreover, this philosophical framework has encouraged the belief that only human life has intrinsic value, while other animals, plants, and the planet itself are simply resources to be exploited for the benefit of humankind. From a purely humanist orientation, the goal of the sixth principle, world community, refers only to the world community of human beings. However, as we have grown in our understanding of the world and our place in the interdependent web of all existence, we now recognize that a purely humanist orientation is a result of an anthropocentric or mankind-centered worldview. Although it is understandable that we think of ourselves first, should we think of ourselves only? Second, regarding peace. Throughout the centuries, we have accelerated and amplified the means by which we wage war. While our human populations and concomitant needs have increased exponentially, the causes of human wars are intertwined with the need for control of a territory and/or for procuring consistent supplies of food and other necessities. At the same time, the fact that resources may be limited and even unrenewable exacerbates the social inequities that contribute to war. How can we seriously hope for the promise of peace when we continue to ignore the limitations of our earth, continuing with our own wasteful habits? Third, regarding liberty. The words liberty and freedom are often used interchangeably, but some would argue that liberty acts in a more limited way than freedom, that liberty acknowledges both the law and the rights of others, whereas freedom is unrestrained by law. Our sixth principle uses the word liberty. This choice of wording appears to imply a more responsible form of freedom that acknowledges the needs of others, as well as one's own needs. And finally, regarding justice for all. In the words of Peter Bakken, author of Freedom, Equality, and Community in the Eco-Justice Literature, environmental and social problems cannot be resolved in isolation from each other. Understanding the connections between ecology and social justice requires a more comprehensive perspective than simply focusing on particular issues. Such a perspective requires identifying the economic, political, and cultural factors which are at the root of both environmental degradation and social injustice. It means developing visions of the good society which embrace both environmental integrity and social justice. Today's opening words are by David Attenborough, and they should be in your order of service. Education is not a matter of getting facts and sewing them within brains, but that it is an attitude of mind that you teach children to find out for themselves. Please rise as you are willing and able to join us for today's affirmation.
In greening lands begins the song, which deep in human hearts is strong. In cheerful strains your voices raise, to fill the whole spring world with praise.
And our opening hymn, number 207.
Earth was given as a garden, cradle for humanity, tree of life.
transitional words today are 671. Freedom. Our faith and knowledge thrive by exercise, as well as our limbs and complexion.
If the waters of truth flow not in a perpetual progression, they sicken into a muddy pool of conformity and tradition.
The light which we have gained was given us not to be ever staring on, but by it to discover onward things more remote from our knowledge.
Where there is much desire to learn, there of necessity will be much arguing, much writing, many opinions.
Give me liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely, according to conscience, above all liberties.
And though all the winds of doctrine were let loose to play upon the earth, so truth be in the field, we do injuriously to misdoubt her strength.
For who knows not that truth is strong, next to the Almighty? She needs no policies, no stratagems to make her victorious.
Let her and falsehood grapple. Whoever knew truth put to the worst in a free and open encounter.
John Milton. Today, our speaker is our own Lisa Baer, and she is the chair of our Board of Trustees. Her topic is going to be religious education. She is also the producer of our weekly YouTube channel videos, chair of the Religious Education Committee, a UU choir member, and a member of this congregation since 1982, with some hits and misses there. Her daughters, now 35 and 40 years old, participated weekly in the RE program of this congregation during the 80s and 90s. I'm very happy to have her here, and I'm very interested in her talk. Let's welcome her.
Christy read the piece that I wrote about the being UU. I wanted to kind of frame this talk in those terms, the eco-justice framework. So I've been asked to talk today about the RE program, and a lot of people ask me, what is RE? That's religious education. So I want to first off start by showing you that I base the program that we have on two basic guideposts. The RE program overall, the philosophy, is kind of based in the fourth principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and as well as these 6 practices of achieving spiritual growth. And the first one is the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. So I'm emphasizing the words direct experience. These are in the words of David Attenborough. I quote him several times. He's a renowned biologist, natural historian, and author. No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. With this in mind, I frame the theme of our RE program with an observation of and a respect for the natural world. The second source supporting spiritual growth and development points to words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, the powers and structures of evil are often of our own making. Looking specifically at the evil that we humans have done to ourselves as well as to other species and the planet in general, David Attenborough has said, "We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet, and never before have we had the power to do something about that. When we confront the powers and structures of evil, we need only to look in the mirror." The next 2 sources are taken in combination: wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual growth, and Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Earlier in January, I think one of the programs had all these variations on the Golden Rule. So the next two slides show that. Notice how each of these versions begins with a sense of self that then reaches toward an empathy with others. Every one of these says. The first slide shows Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Jainism, and I wanted you to notice Jainism's version moves beyond the human species and explicitly encompasses all creatures. And then the next slide shows Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, all variations on the theme. Practice number 5, the humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And once again, David Attenborough had something to say about that. The Holocene has ended. The Garden of Eden is no more. We have changed the world so much that scientists say we are in a new geologic age, the Anthropocene, the age of humans. And the last source and the 6 principles, this one speaks for itself. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony and with the rhythms of nature. Our RE theme, I've been talking about these guideposts of our RE program overall, so now I'll talk about the theme that we've been following for the past year or so. Sustainability is social responsibility, is based on the UU principles, especially the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So what we have to do is ask ourselves, who are we as a species? What makes us unique among the animals? People have thought about this for many years, and they've come up with all these ideas setting us apart, and one by one, many of them have been proven false. We really aren't that different. But one thing that I think of, and John Laska's Prometheus statue was speaking to this, we are the fire starters, the controllers. I don't know of another species of animal that deliberately starts fires or controls fire or uses fire. I think we're the only ones. We manipulate the life cycles of other creatures. I mean, what other species tells another species who it can mate? But we do this with our agriculture, animal husbandry, and now genetic engineering. No other species does that. What is our problem? I did my dissertation on problem-based learning because I believe that's a very good approach to teaching. So what is our problem? How can we honor nature given our reliance on practices that often have unintended consequences for the natural world? So the next set of quotes helps to describe this problem, but also suggests possible solutions that we may explore in our RE program. Turning back to the number 2 of the 6 sources, Words and Deeds of Prophetic People, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil. This is David Attenborough again. We are suffocating ourselves by cutting things down. And the awful thing is that the knowledge is there. 50 years ago, we exterminated things. We did it without realizing. Now there's plenty of evidence of what we're doing, and yet we keep on doing it. It's a moral question about whether we have the right to exterminate species. As I see it, humanity needs to reduce its impact on the earth urgently, and there are 3 ways to achieve this. We can stop consuming so many resources, we can change our technology, and we can reduce our population. We probably need to do all 3. The problem is bigger than individuals. We need to act collectively, we need to influence legislation, and we need to stop the problems at the source. Now, we've had people come in here and talk about reduce, reuse, recycle, which is wonderful, but that is like chasing after something that is way out ahead of us. So the 5th principle talks about the right of conscience and the use of the democratic processes within our congregation and society at large. And about that, David Attenborough says, many individuals are doing what they can, but real success can only come if there is a change in our societies and in the economics and in our politics. It says, the people have spoken. Leaders of the world, you must lead. The continuation of our civilizations, the continuation of the natural world is in your hands. For example, the plastics industry in Terre Haute. My husband worked for the plastics industry for over 30 years. And there are several plastics manufacturers in Terre Haute. It does provide an income for people. Okay, But now there is a huge warehouse that is filled to the max with plastic film. And now we have the problem of how do we get rid of all this plastic film? What do we do with all this plastic? They weren't thinking about the unintended consequences when the plastics took off at the end of World War II. We've lived with it, most of us, all of our lives without ever questioning. And for a while we just shipped it off to China, and then China stopped taking it. Reduce, reuse, recycle, I've been doing that since Betsy and Crystal were kids. But that is not solving the problem. I mean, we're doing what we can, but until we talk to people who do the packaging, don't package it that way. I heard recently that Starbucks is going to try to do something else about reusable cups and that kind of thing. Getting back to our RE program, because I was here to talk about RE. This is my picture. Now, I've had the opportunity to work with a family for the last year or so. They are really great people. They supporting their kids. Parental involvement is the keystone of education. Mothers and fathers are the first teachers, and their continued support and involvement throughout their children's lives is critical. I encourage parents to know what is going on with our RE program and to be part of our discussions and activities. So my approach to RE is coming from a perspective of science education, because that's what my education is, that and medical technology. Observations of the natural world, number one. Hands-on science to engage us with a deeper understanding of the problem, and then the use of media references such as books and video. Examples of what we've been doing over the past year: observations of the natural world. The sunflower here in the corner was shared by our former office assistant, Mike Gordon. It's a quote from the Unitarian Transcendentalist architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. Study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will never fail you. Collaborative learning aspect. I believe that adults learn along with the kids, and that includes me. I learn a lot about the natural world. This was not the approach when I was in school. The playground in the back of the church was a leftover from the Learning Tree School, and it had become quite overgrown since the school's closing at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So last summer, as I was watching my grandkids play in the weeds that had taken over the playground, I was suddenly reminded of an idea that a professor at IU had tried to develop during my time there as a graduate student in science education. The original Life in a Square project was the brainchild of Dr. Meredith Park Rogers. But at the time, I had felt that the idea needed some revision. This then became my version of Life in a Square. So the project grew in several directions beyond simply identifying the plants in the square of the old playground as edible or non-edible, native, non-native, or invasive. This included an investigation of pokeweed berries as a natural dye. More observations of the natural world, the solstice and equinox observations, which is actually an ongoing thing for us right now. The next one shows photo observations that were taken here at the church. As I pointed out, yes, we're on this true north, east, and west orientation, which makes it so these two windows that our architect put in here will show the equinox sunrise on this wall and sunset on that wall, and the light will actually line up with the window on the opposite wall, which I thought was kind of cool. The two pictures on the right-hand side were taken at ground level. One is the fall equinox in 2021, and the other one is the winter solstice. But when we actually did these observations, it raises some problems. The presence of this subdivision over here makes viewing the solstice difficult. So this year, we attempted to view the spring equinox 2022 using a camera that was attached to a drone. The idea was to take the drone out and take it up. The problem was it was too close to the building. My drone operator wasn't happy with that, so we went out in the field. So it's an ongoing process. Okay, down at the bottom here, Spencer is demonstrating the azimuth model that we used for the solstice. So it's a learning experience. It's not just that we're observing, we're using tools to help us keep track of these things, and you can, if you observe it from the same spot each time, then you can really see how the sun moves. Another observation of the natural world, animal behavior. When my grandkids were here over the Christmas break, my 7-year-old granddaughter and I watched crows flying downriver to roost at Fairbanks Park. I took videos and photos, and she painted that picture. Documentation of observations helps with our long-term understanding of natural phenomenon. That's the goal. Keeping in mind, this isn't like I'm teaching science because, first of all, there are no standardized tests, thank you, and there are no grades. So it's not as formal, but I'm just kind of leading by example, and whatever my student or students are interested in, that's kind of, we pick up with it. The next observation set, azimuth observations, the full moon set and the sunset. If you ever observe the moon, it's always exactly the full moon, not the other phases, but the full moon is always directly opposite of the sun. So if the sun is in the northeast, for example, sunrise in the summertime, the full moon will be in the southwest. As the sun is coming up, the full moon is going down, and as the full moon is coming up, the sun is going down. So when the full moon is east, the sun is west. And when the sun is in the north because it's summertime, the moon will be in the south. So they do this dance with each other, and if you chart that, it really creates this beautiful sine wave. Hands-on science as an attempt to engage a deeper understanding of a problem. And this is where I referred to the pokeweed dye project that we had. The project overlapped with the Life in a Square project because the dye that we used was from pokeweed that had grown in the abandoned playground. We were exploring the question, what is a mordant? A mordant is a chemical that's used to help the dye stay fast to whatever it's on, like a cloth or whatever. It's background to Tom's River Story. Tom's River Story is a book, very interesting book, about a river out in, I think it's Delaware. And for years they were polluting it with arsenic and things that were used in the dye process. And then there were clusters of cancers that developed around this river back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. And when they realized what they were doing, they stopped it. And it was a turnaround. It's a story of an achievement in science where we recognized something we were doing wrong and we stopped it. But it has a very interesting history of the discovery of aniline dyes and the unintended consequences. Doing the dyes, we were comparing the pokeweed dye on animal fiber such as wool as opposed to cotton fiber and those kinds of things. So we had those experiments going on. Another hands-on was about the cob houses. One of the things we talk about with eco-justice is building more sustainably. This is a big project here. We use the construction is about 50% of the carbon footprint that we put on the earth here. So we want to talk about how to construct things better than we do. And so we were just kind of playing around with cob houses. We created not just clay homes, but we mixed it with straw. Cob houses are an ancient way to make buildings, like adobe. You've heard of adobe and all like that. And even in Great Britain and all around the world, they have these cob houses that were primitive kinds of houses, but some of them are very durable. And so in our YouTube, which I'm going to get to in a minute, I've linked some videos if you're interested in that topic. We also rely on media references, books, and YouTube. So when we were doing the Life in a Square thing, we were using books about edible wild plants. I've had a volunteer who said she was interested in helping us with natural dyes, and a lot of that information it can be found in books as well. Okay, so this brings us to the extension of our RE program, our YouTube channel. Now, how many people have actually checked out our YouTube channel, just a show of hands? Okay, which means about half of you. All right, so this is going to be a real quick run through for those of you who aren't comfortable and don't know how to do it. If you are on a computer, you go to YouTube, and then you type in UU of Terre Haute. And then with the magnifying glass there, you will search, and that will take you to when you hit search, okay, that's what you'll see. That's our home page. You click that on, and you can see that we've got some of our services down here, but if you go to the home page, you'll get some other playlists besides just the services that we have. Our playlists, I have education, hymns and preludes that Betsy has done, the UU services, which there are quite a few. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, every Sunday. And then the videos to go along with our services. I cannot embed other people's videos in my videos. It doesn't work that way. But what we will do, for example, when John did a thing about the Sufi whirling dervishes, I could not embed that video that he used, but I have that video linked to the videos that go along with our services. So if you wanted to see that, it's there. Also, there's one about world religions that kind of gives an overview of all these basic religions. If you want to know a little bit, what is Jainism anyway? Okay, there's a video about it. I believe that RE is not just about the kids that go back with me in the RE room. It's about all of us. We all need to educate ourselves. So that's what the YouTube channel is reaching beyond the classroom. The education playlist, you'll see under these little, say, you've gone to playlists, and it lists them here. Education. Okay, that's a picture of David Attenborough there. I put some of his video. I don't know how many have watched David Attenborough. Anybody? Okay, a few. He has some really excellent things about the natural world. This is videos to go along. I talked about that. When I did the talk about Frank Lloyd Wright, the video that I used is there. It stands as a separate piece. I remember Christy and Spencer did one about kids with autism, and you used a video. That's linked there. Again, any external videos that were used during a service, I've tried to link them here. Hymns and preludes. Okay, this is our playlist. Every one of those little tiny blocks there on this page and on the next page are services that have been posted that were here. Okay? We started this during the pandemic. Actually, Sam Martland started it, and he did the first 5, I think, and then he said, I can't do this. And so I said, okay, I will. So, and then the final one is the World Religions playlist. I think they're entertaining. They're kind of kiddish, but not terribly kiddish. I think anybody could watch them and learn something if you don't know a lot about different religions. These are my goals for this RE program. I want to bring in interested students who need less structured time to discuss and explore matters of sustainability. Remember, there are no grades, no deadlines, and no standardized tests. But when Sylvia and Bill and I went out to Rose-Hulman last September, I realized, there's a pool of students there who are learning how to engineer things. And I think they should learn sustainable engineering. And I think this might be a place for them to come, and they're not doing it for a class, they're not doing it for a grade. It takes however long it takes them, and they could involve themselves and hopefully, again, I see us as a whole congregation of people learning together, not just the kids are over there and then the adults do something else. I would like to see us all involved together. And that's the other piece of that. Sustainability is the social responsibility thing. Okay, and then my last one, RE is for everyone. And my last slide, just in case anyone is interested. I have done other talks here. Some of them are on video. Some of them were done before we had a video channel. So some of them, that's at the end here. So this one will be posted too if you want to go back and see any of those slides. And thank you.
Our closing hymn is number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
For the earth forever turning, for the sky for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures
Our closing words are also in your order of service. To continue, we require more than intelligence. We require wisdom. By David Attenborough.
May the blessings of love rest upon you. May peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore.
Go in peace. Know that you are loved and that your life is sacred.